Hello, everybody. I'm your host today, Russell, and we're having another exciting episode of What the Fixed Ops. I'm going to do that again. I don't even like it. Hello, everybody. I'm Russell Hill, your host today of WTF, and that is What the Fixed Ops to all of you out there. And I'm joined today by.
Hello, everybody. I'm Charity, your co-host today, and we have a great guest, Peter Smith, the founder and managing partner of the Lion Partnership. Peter, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much for having me on. I can't wait to go through this podcast. I've been anticipating it for quite some time. So thank you.
Well, good. Tell us a little about who you are and what you do.
Okay, well, I guess the 100,000-foot level is I'm a car guy. I've been a car guy since cars were invented, basically. I can remember back to all the Hot Wheels as a 4-year-old and progressing past that to actually at 14 creating my own business in my parents' garage where I started a car detailing company. Now that was in 1982, so quite some time ago. It was an interesting foray. It allowed me to save up enough money to get into the business as I shouldn't say get into the business, that's not true. It allowed me enough money to buy my first car, which indirectly got me into the business. And that was because I had a very bad car accident and I was hospitalized for almost 5 years off and on from it. And in doing that, the only thing that I could do was work at car dealerships during the off times that I was at a hospital. So I turned to actually loving the business. And at 19, I got my first sales job with Toyota. And I rapidly ascended through the ranks in Canada to be in the top 100 salespeople of over 4,000. At 19, it progressed me through traveling to Europe and working with OEMs and dealerships in Europe, starting BDC prior to what we know it as today. It was actually walking the streets and knocking on doors at businesses and developing relationships at that point. I was there for 4.5 years, came back to Canada, worked in the premium business for quite some time, rose through the ranks of that, became literally the top salesperson in the world for Volvo and possibly for every other manufacturer, selling over 3,500 cars in 1 year. Then did a couple other things and then got this great idea in 2008 to start a company. And that company was called we were going to start a direct mailer magazine for the car business that hadn't been seen or heard of before. Well, I quit my job, which was a high paying job, and said, you know what, I'm going out on my own.
Good for you.
Well, a month later, 7 car companies went bankrupt, and
Not good for you.
my dream got crushed. So in saying that, I pivoted, as we all do in this industry, and I started a company from that, basically teaching people how to design sales processes, sales procedures, sales development, everything. I worked in about 7 or 8 different verticals, from everything from mining to hospitality to medical, you name it, real estate, everything. I was out there and I loved it, but the traveling was so tough on everything. As we all know as vendors, how much time we spend on the road. Well, my wife said to me, you got to change. And I said, well, what do you want me to do? And she goes, go back to the car business. So off I went back into the car business. And in 2017, elevated a couple dealer groups, and it was great. And then I just had enough. And I said, I'm done. I'm spent. I'm out. And I bought a piggy bank company. And I started distributing piggy banks all over North America as a hobby business. And COVID happened. And COVID killed my piggy bank business because the shipping costs went through the roof, and we couldn't do it anymore. So again, out. I'm done. I'm relaxing. I'm just going to help my wife in her business. Well, a little thing happened. She was sitting at a light in her Tesla, and the light turned green, and the guy behind her in a Jeep saw the light turn green and basically tapped into the back end of her car. That minor collision actually was only about $2,000 damage. That cracked the bumper, cracked the taillight. But because the taillight was broken, she couldn't drive her car. So went to the body shop. It spent 9 months in the body shop. No parts were available. So the car ate itself, and eventually they had to write the car off. And that's fine. But after all that experience, I went to buy a car. And it was the most horrific experience I've ever had in this industry. And in doing so, I basically said, I have to make this industry better.
Okay, stop right there. Stop right there. Because right after he made that decision and decided to get back in, he was going to really revolutionize this industry, variable and fixed and all points in between. And I met him shortly after. I don't know exactly when I met him, but it's important for me to say this because I really, it's like the things he was talking about. It's like, is he real? Does he really know about this stuff? And next thing I know, I don't even know how it happened. I met him only one time, and that's when you came to Golden Ridge. Yeah,
yes.
You're at Golden Ridge with Larry and many of others. But even before that, I mean, what do we spend 4 or 5 hours a week together every single week, if not more? At least that. Okay. I mean, he's in all these different clubhouse rooms, which I'm sure he's going to talk about. And he's started his own clubhouse rooms, a couple of those a week. And then he's joining other rooms and lethal sales on Wednesday night, which is a Zoom meeting and much more. And I've really, really gotten quite close to him. I don't even know where to begin it, and I'm sure he's going to cover it. But he has these phenomenal guests on, and the way he promotes things, and the people that show up, we're talking cutting edge stuff. And he is really he's changing the whole paradigm on variable and in fixed operations. He knows all the ins and outs, technology companies. I'm astounded. He is truly my brother from another mother. I don't even the way he lifts all of us up, but he's real quick he's going to speak his own mind. I'm just kind of setting the stage for what y'all are going to see, because I don't know if anybody's done a podcast like this with him where he has the venue to talk about what he's fixing to talk about from where he just left off before I rudely interrupted him. But please forgive me for that. But I just want you to know, when this thing drops, you're going to learn some stuff about Peter you didn't know. And I know some of you were kind of like, you didn't understand his take either. It's like, does he really? No, he knows what he's talking about. So I wanted to validate that and reinforce that, being another party, because of some of the stuff you're fixing to hear. And he won't even begin to touch that much of it. So I'm going to highly encourage you, and I'll probably do it again at the end. Get in touch. I
appreciate that, Robert.
Yeah, go ahead, Peter.
So when it all happened, and I bought this car, and the dealership experience was so awful. I gave the dealership a true CSI score, and the general manager of the dealership called me up and swore like a drunken sailor to me about what I'd written on the CSI.
Because you were honest.
Because I was honest. And now I was also honest when I bought the car. And I can guarantee every dealership that we encounter would love to have me as a customer. And the reason why I say that is I walked into the dealership. It was a dealership I actually worked for at one point in my career. I'd bought 7 cars from them. I serviced all my cars with them. I'd referred hundreds and hundreds of people to them. I knew both the past owner and the new owner. And one of my closest friends was an ex-president of the OEM that they represented. So I had a pin. I told them what car I wanted. It was on their lot. And I also explained to them that I would pay MSRP on it because they deserve to make a profit. I didn't want to use my pin, which would have gotten me a tremendous deal. I said, no, I want that recognition that, hey, this is the value of my customer relationship. But they failed miserably. And the CSI scored was relative of that. And when the guy called me up and started swearing like a drunken sailor, and then asked me if I like sex and travel and hung up, in all realism, I turned around and I went, that's awful. And at that point in time, I had probably about 16,000 connections on LinkedIn on my automotive platform. And so I wrote about it, and it was picked up by a number of trade publications, and they wanted to write about it.
Yeah, you're
So
very right.
as I was writing about it, I was venting, and I said, I'm going to start a company, and it's going to be called Lion Partnership, and it's the pride of a lion because lions and groups are prides, and we're going to be the king of the jungle, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do it right, and people will respect us based on what we're going to focus on, that customer centricity, that change management, looking at it as a business, not a car lot. We're going to change it all, and I don't care what it's going to cost me to get that in place. So I had a couple of very unique challenges. One, I live in Canada, and two is Canadian dealerships operate about 5 years behind US dealerships. They won't spend money where US dealerships will spend money.
Uh-huh.
So, me as a Canadian coming down to the US market was the biggest challenge. No one heard of me, no one knew me. I've worked very rarely with a number of people in the US. And even though that I sold more cars in the US than I did in Canada in my career, I just didn't have that presence. So how do I go about and gain that presence? Well, luckily enough, we had a mutual friend, Ian Nethercott and Jeff Polo from the Auto Hub show. And they asked me to come on the show when they heard this, well, when they read the story that was published.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started going on their show, and then I became a weekly guest of their show, and then I became an expert panelist of their show. And then that led to people like Brooke Furness and Jason Harris and Kaylee Fellio and Joshua Taylor, who works with you, all asking me to be on their shows. And then I discovered Clubhouse. And then I was asked to speak in a number of rooms there. And this all kept on growing and growing and growing, but there was no monetization
Yeah.
because, again, you're in a situation that no one wants to be the pioneer. No one wants to have that take that chance because as dealers, they live in the aspect of the fear of the unknown. Well, what if? It's always a what if situation.
Yeah.
What if this is going to do what he says it's going to do? What if it doesn't? And I look at it and I say, you know what? It's not a what if. It's what if you don't? And you continue down the same pathway that you're going on because you don't know what your customers are saying. And that's why one of the biggest things I talk about when I'm talking to dealers and everyone else is I couldn't give a rat's butt about 20 groups because 20 groups to me don't mean diddly.
No.
Because how does a guy in Butte, Montana and a guy in downtown LA compare their KPIs and their spends and their best practices and everything else? Yeah, you might have something that might be interchangeable, but you have a completely different and diverse customer base,
That's
and
right.
you'll never glean anything from it. So my suggestion has always, want to know what's happening in the marketplace? Get 20 of your customers in a boardroom and have someone who's independent ask them the information that you're seeking to get, and make sure that those people are a reflective body of your customers, not just on the ones who buy, but the ones who don't as well. And get that information and be able to disseminate what they're saying to you. That's where you're going to get better. And again, that also looks to the point where when we're looking at dealers are mismanaged so poorly right now. And when I say that, it's not about the quality of people, it's how they're looking at the operational standards of the operation. Meaning, you have a general manager, and depending on how big your store is or their purvey of the operations of the store is, they could have somewhere between 8 and 15 different verticals that they're responsible and accountable for. You take the average person working 8 hours a day, that might mean that general manager has 25 minutes per vertical to look at the operations and see where the challenges are. At 25 minutes, you can't even eat lunch in 25 minutes, never mind
I can.
operating.
Me too.
No,
Yeah, it's a tough one.
Yeah.
Well, it's horrific. And when we look at that and we say, how after that do you have the time to go out and invest in investigating what's out there that can make your dealership better? Like, for example, does a general manager know about FixedOPS marketing? Does a general manager know about onboarding? Does a general manager know about Decosay, which is the digital platform that I'm bringing to North America? Does a general manager have any of that information? No, because they don't have time to investigate. Never mind review and implement. They just don't have it. And because they don't have it, it's not getting changed. There is no change to this industry. We've talked about it long enough. You got a 50s training manual from Ford. It hasn't changed. It hasn't changed. We talk about the walk around. We talk about the meet and greets. We talk about how fixed and variable interact with each other or don't interact with each other. We talk about all these challenges that are out there in this industry, but there's no one out there that is willing to ruffle the feathers, except for myself, because I'll call it how it is. And that's
yeah. You're certainly
what I'm doing.
Yeah, you're not shy about that, and you're probably going to say something because I want you to, but I want Charity to know where I got it from. And I get a lot of information from Peter. And I mean, it made sense, and I knew it, but the way he put it together, because he got in the business in 82, I got in the business in 85, started selling cars, and the average salesperson sold how many, and where we're at today, Peter?
10. 10. And it all depends. It could go to 9 or 11 or 12,
yeah, but
depending
I mean,
on the name.
You have all this wonderful technology and all these amazing vendors, and we're still at 10. Peter's,
you know why?
He wants to revolutionize that. I do, but go ahead.
My interpretation of that is very simple. We hear all the time, oh, it's so hard to find techs. It's so hard to find techs. Techs are the most impossible thing to find in our business. And I'll call a BS on that to make it politically correct. It is BS. The hardest thing to find in this business is a salesperson.
Yeah.
We are putting people in seats. We're not finding salespeople. We're not finding brand ambassadors. We're not finding people that are going to become trusted advisors to our clients. And we're looking at this business in the wrong manner. We're looking at transactional data rather than retained relationships. And that is truly where we err in the variable. If we were looking at the true conversion ratios, a retained customer converts at 90%. A referral converts at 80%. An appointment converts at 50%. A phone call converts at 5 to 15%, an internet lead is 5 to 10%, and a walk-on is 15 to 20%. But why do we go to the bottom of that funnel and put all the priority on those there? Why? Because it's very simple. They're movement. They are movement. You don't have to put effort and time to consider it. Their movement. That's why fish go after lures. They don't sit there and wait till the food comes to them by nurturing the environment. They go after what's moving in front of them. And that's basically how this business operates. We want the next shiny thing. We want excitement. We want move. And the other side of it is we also, as management, look at it in an asinine manner. We say to our teams, you have to have 1,500 touch points a month to remain having your name badge or your uniform, as they call it. That's what you need. If we look at that, and I know a lot of dealer groups that have a mandatory 50 calls per day per salesperson, and they break it down to three semesters basically, and in those semesters they say you've got to make 17 phone calls. So 17 phone calls in 3 hours, it seems reasonable. But if we take that and we break it down by minutes, it allows them 7.5 minutes per phone call for an 8-hour shift. 7.5 minutes. That's if they do nothing other than phone calls.
Yep.
And if you turn around and say, what's the average time for a conversion of a sale in a dealership? It's about 3 hours right now.
Mm-hmm.
So we want them to sell 15 cars a month, and that's where we see as they're being accountable for their space on the floor. 3 hours, that drops your telephone time down to under 5 minutes. Now, that's if they convert 15 people. How many people does it take to convert 15 people? You're talking your telephone time. True telephone time is down under 2 minutes. What quality are you giving your consumer base for a 2-minute phone call?
Little to none, Peter. Little to none.
Zero. So what are you doing? You're blowing your opportunities out the window because you're not giving them a reasoning for your calling. You're just trying to make it through so you can continue with your job. And that is it's so poorly operated. And I relate it back, and you mentioned the number. In Canada, we have 2.5 times the amount of dealerships per capita than the US. 2.5 times more franchises. We have less salespeople. We sell on average 12 cars a month per salesperson in Canada, so 20% more. Yet in Canada, if I asked the salesperson to make a phone call, they'd laugh at me. They'd literally laugh at me. And they would go, why would we need to do that? You don't pay us to make phone calls. You pay us to sell vehicles. And selling vehicles is following up on the current business. And that's what it's at. And that's the mentality and the mind shift that we have to institute into the US market, is saying, let's improve the quality of interaction with our clients. And if we can do that, we will change the dynamics. So how do we do that? Well, first of all, we find the right people for the positions. And let's stop this madness of a 70% turnover and a 35% turnover.
It's so costly.
It's beyond costly. I did an 11-part series on that, and it's $119,000 per salesperson and $132,000 per technician. And that's what it's costing. But it doesn't show up on the financial statement, so stakeholders don't recognize it. They don't care. Hey, you know what? We lose a salesperson, we'll just fill the desk. We'll get another person. But what are you getting? Are you getting someone who's looking at the business as a last chance or as a great opportunity? And so we have to start recruiting out of other areas that we not normally went to,
Right.
and stop the madness of getting the poor quality people. Now, once we do that, we have to onboard them correctly, because 78% of people are leaving because they weren't onboarded correctly. And that is not setting them up for success. And if we can't set them up for success, how do we look at retaining them? When we retain our people, we can improve what they call DX, which is dealership experience. And that will reflectively come back into the CX. Well, how do we do the DX? Well, we have to give them the tools that are going to give them the success, that are going to engage the clients, that are going to provide them everything that they need, that the reduction of challenges gets dissipated much quicker and faster than ever before.
But Peter, I got to say this. So I have been one of those people that was hired at a dealership with some experience, and there's your desk, there's your chair, there's your phone, go to work. Now that is horrible onboarding.
Yeah. Add in, we'll get you business cards in a couple of weeks when we collect enough people that need business cards.
Yeah.
That's the other thing, which is actually a fictitious lie, because what they're doing is they're seeing if you stay,
that's exactly
so that they don't have so that they don't have to spend $20 on 500 business cards for you.
Listen, I've seen people hired and they order business cards before their actual start date. And at the receptionist desk, there is stacks and stacks of 500 and 1,000 business cards that people that didn't even show to their first day.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's well, and that's a reflection of who they're coming to work for. And I'll give you a little story. And then this happened in the last, I think it happened yesterday, actually. I started it. There was a dealer group in Canada, and they put out a video of the dealer's son going to the dealership to give out a cash bonus to a sales manager for hitting his volume. And it was a 2.5-minute video of pumping it up that we're doing so good for our employees that we're giving out a cash bonus for him hitting his volume incentive. Well, his volume number was 80 units, and he hit it. The cash incentive that they gave him was $1,000. And they were promoting that they were giving him this because they were so fantastically happy that he hit his volume incentive. Well, that's $12.50 a car. That is absolutely beyond pathetic, but you're promoting it. You're promoting that this is great. Well, they have 10 rooftops, and he was the only one who got it. So they said they put up $10,000 for people who got their volume incentive. They walked into the dealership. There he's standing in the showroom, and they hand over $10,000, and they said, "Do you have any words of wisdom?" And his comment was, "Buy low, sell high."
Let me guess, at this very moment, another vendor is walking up to your lot with something shiny to sell. Before you head back and hide in your office, let me take a minute to tell you about my friend Dawn Pelham and my friends over at Global Dealer Solutions. They exist to help you find solutions to problems, some of which you might not even know you have. Best of all, they can manage as many products and services as needed for you, helping cut down on multiple vendor visits and distractions. And if you need anything, you have one number to call or text for the response all dealers like to hear. On it, GDS understands that successful dealerships require more than a set it and forget it mentality. And they'll be with you every step of the way, from setup, implementation, training, and support. And if necessary, they'll even cancel non-performing products for you. No pushback, no arguments, just a solution here executing course corrections as needed. Check out gdsdealers.com to learn the difference and set up a time to meet. Let's see if they're a good fit for you.
I'm Ray Hernandez with Sonic Automotive Group. and you're listening to What the Fixed Ops podcast.
And I was going, and you promoted this. Okay. So here's the challenge of the industry. And this is why we think of it as the car lot, not the car business.
Right.
What are you going to gain by putting that video out there? You're not gaining that you're actually paying a reasonable amount of money to your staff. You're not gaining that it's a great place to work for. You're not gaining anything. You want to take that volume incentive, you're paying it to one person, not the team that actually did it. So why not take the $1,000 and get a food truck and an ice cream truck and say, hey, it's the summer, let's celebrate for
Yeah.
your team effort. And then film that.
Yeah. Hold on just a sec.
Backward thinking.
Charity.
Peter, did you write that comment below the post when you saw it? What you just told us, did you tell them?
Oh yeah. And so again, I'm the king of ruffling feathers and calling people.
No question about it. But I want to get a couple of things in here. So Charity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm going to skip a few because I think he's covered some of these.
Yeah, I know, but I want to make sure they get. But anyway, go ahead.
Okay. All right. Let's talk about data for a little while, Peter. Do you think you're an expert on data? Does it tell the truth, or does it more often lie? Does it help or hurt the industry?
Good question. So there is a twofold answer to that. Data that is manipulatable hurts the industry. And it's so simple to manipulate data. And there are companies out there that allow it to happen, and then they promote it, and then they try and fixate on that in their operations of giving it back to the dealers. I'm the biggest fan of companies that have data capture when it's not being seen. So if you have, for example, there are companies out there that are actually measuring through cameras how many people walk in your showroom.
Yep.
And how long it takes for that person to be interacted with. Well, that's non-manipulable data. And that data is actually going to help the industry, because it's going to turn around and say, this is when this person came in, you're taking 8 minutes to approach that person. And by that time, that person has a discernible lack of concern for doing business with you now, because they're looking at, they're not interesting enough to be approached. So those kind of things are really, truly, how would you say, important. Another system out there that I represent is allowing the business intelligence that is not, it's, as Brooke says, it's facts, not feelings. If I go into a sales manager's office and I say, who's your best salesperson? They'll typically go to who sells the most or who produces the most gross profit. Well, that's not your best salesperson. Your best salesperson is a combination of gross, volume, and opportunities and closures. So if you take that as a factor and you take that data, which is non-manipulable, because it's happened, then you can get the true data, and then you can know where you're at. You can also know who you need to train and who do you need to coach and lift them as a true leader does. We have this inaccuracy of titles in this business.
Oh yeah, we do.
We call people managers. Well, managing is managing numbers. It's not, you don't manage people. You don't train people. You coach people. You train dogs, as a colleague once said on a clubhouse call. You train dogs. You don't train people. You give them the ability to learn, and then you lift them through leadership.
Right.
Through coaching and mentorship. And that's, again, we're lacking in that in this industry. And I look at it as that's one of the changes that I've been able to push in the last 2 years to say, hey, stop the madness. Training accounts for a 23% lift. You add a coaching component, and that lifts it to 88%.
So this is the stuff that in the rooms, all the different rooms and things that we participate in, obviously people of like minds, but the vast majority is where the opportunity is. The people that are listening to Peter and engaging with him, etc. They're listening and they're slowly getting it. It is a huge ship. It's a huge industry, but it's really a small industry, and it's going to take a while to shift. But it's leadership. It's all about coaching, mentoring, developing. You train them the road to the sale, and after that, training seems to have just it's like it's a word I hear used, and it drops off into nothing because we continue to hire and train. We're not developing, coaching, and mentoring people to the next level. What the hell are they even doing here? What do they want?
Yeah, exactly. So if we look at the model that is currently being operated on, and we said to a stakeholder and said, okay, let's take and use a checkerboard, and we're going to turn around and we're going to put all the pieces on the checkerboard, and we're going to say, okay, this is your playing field right now, and you are investing $10,000, $20,000, $25,000, whatever number you want to put on it. And the dealer principal says, yep, I get that. These are all my people. This is my training investment. This is my people investment. And I turn around and I take my hand and I swipe off 3/4 of that board and say, what do you got now? How much money have you just lost? And that's the visualization that we don't see because we're replacing one. We just keep replacing people and we don't see those costs and we don't see the factor. It's just like the EV movement. Now, whether you like the EV movement or you don't like the EV movement, it's going to be somewhere between 10 and 20% of your revenues and profitability. So why not embrace it? If I walked into the dealer and I said, okay, Mr. Dealer, you're at 100% revenue. I'm going to take 20% of it away. What is that dealer going to do? He's going to run around like the sky is falling, screaming his head off and saying, where did that money go? But if you turn around and say, hey, I can supplement this if we only train the people properly and we coach them properly on how to involve the consumer base so that we don't have these floor plan issues that we have right now. When you have EV supply of 2 years in some dealerships. 2 years.
2 years.
Yeah. So when we look at it, it's just asinine how they look at it just gets me to the point where I just start shuddering because the mentality, the mindset of it. And that's where I really have made friends and lost friends in this business, which were never friends, but I've lost a lot of people because I don't care if you're a billionaire and you have 20 dealerships, 50 dealerships or whatever. You're a person. You have 2 legs, 2 arms, a mouth, 2 ears, and 2 eyes. Start using them and understand the theory of anatomy. The feet face forward, so you move forward. Your eyes are at the front of your head, so you move in that direction. Your ears are at the side of your head, so you hear everything and you can understand. Your arms can move in any direction that they need to pick up, move, and place things where they should be. So understand anatomy first before you actually engage in your business. And a lot of people say you got 2 years or 2 years and 1 month, use them proportionally. What about your eyes? Your eyes are the windows to your soul. The eyes are going to see and observe everything. And if you don't get that, well, you're missing out. You're really missing out. And I recognized a lot of these things, and some people know it, but my car accident was life-changing. It was life-threatening. I literally was on my deathbed on many occasions from the car accident. And that perspective has given me what my perspective is today is one of positivity. Every day we wake up is a good day.
That's right.
Change people's lives because you're here for that purpose. You're there to interact with people and really give it all to everyone. We're servant leaders. We are not selfish people. There are selfish people out there, but the real leaders are servant leaders.
Yes, they are.
And that's the kind of involvement that I've given for all the clubhouse rooms that I support. All the everything.
So I think
Go ahead.
monetarily things are starting to come together for you. I have witnessed
Yeah.
and heard and seen, but I got to tell you, so a lot of people that now have gravitated word of mouth, etc., because Peter seems to be just about everywhere these days. Like him, love him, hate him, whatever. The thing is, they're talking about him, and if everybody loved you, they probably wouldn't be talking about you. So as long as they're talking about you, you're doing something, you're making waves, and you're making a statement. So he aligns himself with a lot of different technology companies like ours and other types of companies, and he promotes them in a way. But here's the thing about Peter, he's going to vet your ass like you've never been vetted, first of all. And the second thing is, he doesn't want any money from you. Okay. He doesn't he doesn't want any. Why are you doing that, Peter?
Okay. So I don't ask or want or will receive any performance-based benefits. And the reason why I do that is that takes the unbiasedness of my nature away from me. And I have nothing against it. There are agents out there, and I have lots of colleagues out there that are agents for specific technologies, and they're there to help their dealer bodies that they work with these platforms. However, I don't want to recommend something that is not perfect for that one person. So, in other words, if your platform doesn't work with this dealer group for whatever reason, it could be their DMS, could be the CRM, could be their process and procedures, their training, whatever. It won't work with them. Why push that upon them? Find the platform that actually works with them so they can get the success that they need. Therefore, if I'm paid by one and not paid by another, who am I going to recommend? I never recommend the big one.
And like you said, yeah. No,
and
like
that it. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, like you said, that's something I really respect about you. But you don't disrespect people who do that because they have they promote certain things and they happen to think that that's the best that they're bringing to their dealer body. And you're essentially doing the same thing, except you're not biased.
Right. That's the one that people are paid on relationships is an agent. And there's nothing wrong with agencies. My family operated an agency for 50 plus years. I understand that. But I look at it as I'm looking at the unbiased thing. The dealer's paying me to provide them with the best possible solution for them, not for me, but for them. And therefore, that payment to me is enough. I don't need more. I'm not there to maximize the dollars in my pocket, because if I was, I would have gone back into the retail side of things and let dealership groups. I'm doing it because I'm doing what I believe is the right way to change this business.
Well, it certainly appears to be working. There's a question here, and I kind of told Peter, I said, Charity just, she finds stuff, even though I know you, Peter, she finds stuff out that I didn't even really think of, etc. And so, and not that we get through them all, but I'm looking at this one actually. Have you seen any revolutionary ideas come through Clubhouse? And can you give us, our listeners, an example? Because you're on Clubhouse a lot.
Well, yeah. So in Clubhouse, one of the challenges that I've seen And we've been in a lot of rooms together, and there's so many automotive rooms. One thing that I've seen is the terminology and the vernacular that people use in this industry is awful. It's truly awful. And I came across a comment that was made about 6, 7 months ago, and I jumped on it. And it was the first pencil. And penciling has such a negative
Oh my God.
it has a negative connotation to it
Yep.
that it's just it's as bad as ups,
Yep.
because and when you talk about the person who pays your paycheck as an up, uh, think about what it is. It means you get up off your butt to go serve them, and that is so negative. That so I'm trying to change that. But when I looked at the topic that was being mentioned on the first pencil conversation, it was about leasing, and leasing is horrifically low numbers in the United States. It's 24.8% is the national average. In Canada, it averages over 70% penetration. And the one thing that's been able for me to get out there is to show dealers and dealer groups how leasing can truly benefit their operation,
That's
and
right.
how to discuss it properly with the consumers. Now, in saying that, I've seen the rise of a couple leasing only training companies throughout our industry, which, if we really were thought provoking in the US, we would hire them, because the benefits are massive and the downside is very, very small. It's
Absolutely.
almost microscopic. So seeing that come through in all the rooms that I've been involved in the last 6 months is really warming to me, because it's so necessary
It
to
is.
give our customers another opportunity.
It is. No, no.
Because
Yeah.
we just the consumer right now does not have the funds to move forward in the situations that they're in right now. It's the I believe I researched the number in the last little while. It was 56% of the population are subprime now. The population.
Yep. That's
There is over 30% of the loans out there right now
in
are
default.
3 months or greater behind
Yep.
in payment.
So, I mean, there's another one in here, Charity. Ask a question. The time has just like flown by, but you have a
Well,
question.
the good news is you've answered a lot of them just naturally speaking.
Yeah.
So, you talked about having a profound experience in your career. Have you witnessed anything that's have a profound effect on the automotive industry in general throughout your time in it?
Well, I would. That's a very tough one to capture off the top of my head, but I will. A couple of the things that I've seen out there, and I'm going to be selfish about this, is I've worked with thousands of people over my career. I've worked in Europe, I've worked in Canada, the United States. And it wasn't too long ago, I attended an event, and a person came to that event specifically knowing that I would be there. I hadn't seen that person in over 20 years. And he knew that I was going to be at that event because I publish basically everywhere I go.
Yeah.
And he sought me out, and he came up to me and said, I can't believe I got the chance to meet you again and tell you what you've done for my career. how you designed my career for me and no one else did, and how you acted as an invisible mentor to me because I've followed what you've done. There are a lot of people in our industry right now that operate in that manner. There's also a lot of people in our industry that operate in a different manner, the actual reverse of that.
Yep.
We know who they are.
Yeah,
We
we
know
do.
who the great ones are, and who are the ones that we want to stay away from. Unfortunately, this industry drives a lot of people to the ones that we want to stay away from because of the visibility of their actions on social. And again, we have to self-police our industry, and that is coming. We're going to be self-policing an industry within the next 24 months, and it
There's a lot
will
coming down the
change.
pike, isn't there?
Yeah, and dealerships can bark and scream about the Cars Act. There's going to be parts of that Cars Act that will get pushed through. There might be other parts that don't, but that Cars Act is actually good for the industry. It really is. And that's another thing. We're changing the way it has to be. Right now, 40% of the industry, or 40% of the population trusts us. How bad is that? Would you go to a restaurant that had a 40% rating? Would you go
No.
to a hotel? Would you fly on an airplane? Hey, United Airlines is that 40% trust factor that it's actually going to do its job. Would you ever fly United again? No. But we, as a dealership body and an industry body, we believe that's okay. And it's, again, it goes back to the transaction rather
Yep.
than the relationship.
Yeah, and see, that's one thing that Peter is not settling for: the status quo or the okay. We need to turn this thing around. It's coming. A lot of there's so many different ways to go, and we're getting so close to being in out of time. From reduction in franchises to, I mean, it goes
Yeah.
on and on and on. The things that are coming down the road, that people better start tightening their belt, because things are
Oh,
changing.
yeah. And if they believe that the franchise laws will protect them as dealers, good luck. You'll be out litigated by someone who has way more money than you do.
And so I want to say something real quick about that. And I think I heard this from David Long. Hell, I don't know. I may have even heard it from you, Peter. But okay, control the controllables. Okay. The manufacturer
Absolutely.
controls new car sales. Okay. You control about 20% of what you do or cannot do, et cetera, with new cars. What you can control finance and income. You can control used cars, and you can control fixed operations. Those are the controllables.
Absolutely.
But they're chasing all their time, their money, and blowing through and blowing the whole experience, trying to outwit the manufacturers, and they control new car sales.
Exactly. And again, that's back to that mindset that is being instilled, because my daddy did it, and his daddy did it, and his daddy did it in this car business. You have 4-generation car dealers.
It must be okay, Peter.
This is the way we've always done it. The absolute kiss of death in this industry. I've always said, you want something to grow, you go to the garden center, you buy a cedar, and it's in a pot. You bring it to your house to plant it in your backyard. Do you leave it in the pot, or do you take it out of the pot and plant it in the ground so it can grow? We have to look beyond the constraints of what we're in to grow this industry. We cannot do it the way we've always done it. So in that sense, again, we have to break the mold. We got to take it back down to the foundation. They talk about getting back to basics. It's not about getting back to basics. It's about getting down to the foundation and rebuilding. That's what we have to do. We have the technology. We don't build buildings using 1910 technology. We build buildings using today's technologies.
Yes, we do.
Like our phones don't have cords on them anymore, unless you're Larry Feldman. Then you have a corded phone.
Oh yeah, Larry does.
So it's we have to change. We have to use that dynamic ability to change, and it's easier. And we got to stop looking at it as we know best. We don't know best. We have to look at the new generations. They know what they want. They know how they're going to do it. We can't turn around and say, hey, we've been through this before. This is the way to do it. Otherwise, we wouldn't have companies like Waymo, where self-driving cars running around Vegas and San Francisco and not taking people from point A to point B. It would never been thought of. You look at a 1977 Civic versus a 2025 Civic, and they are light years in difference.
Yep.
If you reverse them in timing and you put it 2025 and 77, they would think it was dropped off by an alien. We progress. We progress in this business. We don't sit there and be complacent. Complacency is the kiss of death in this business.
It is.
Let dealers wish to be complacent. But
that's
in that complacency,
yep.
In that complacency, they're asking their teams to improve on the numbers. But how can you improve on the numbers if you don't have the tools or the mindset? So again, we have to change that. We have to be able to be in front of those people that is able to bring technologies. Like, as you said, with your platform is so revolutionary that it's almost unbelievable. And because it does, if you turn around and you say, this is what it's going to do, no dealer is going to say, yeah, sure. Okay, yeah, I'll take it on. But now you have the data behind it that shows that ROI, that shows these are the reasons why we change. This is the reasons why we change. It's going to provide you with a 5x return or a 10x return or a 15 or 25x return. And I've always said a 2x return will get you a phone call. A 5x return will give you a demo. A 10x return will get you a pilot. And a 20x return will get you in the store. Where's your return? And that's the mentality. And it shouldn't be that mentality. A 2x return should get you in the store.
Who in the industry has the most profound effect on you? Who in the industry is that? Is it a boss? A mentor? Is there any one person that stands out?
Yeah, there's quite a few, and I can go to dealer principals, this, that, and whatever. But the real person that actually had the greatest effect on me in this industry is Larry Feldman. And Larry, in all fairness, when I was at my absolute worst and willing to just throw in the towel and give it all up, Larry kept me engaged in it. And when all my investment money was gone, Larry invested in me.
Wow. Larry is a phenomenal guy for sure.
So Larry invested in me. Larry did a number of things for me that no one else in this entire industry has. So if I can say anything, Larry's the one who's kept my chin up, even though that, and as he says, I'm the most positive guy out there. No matter what happens, I'm always smiling, always happy, always going. But it's Larry kept me from going to the dark side. And I will tell you that because that's who he is. And he truly is empathetic to every situation. He's truly understanding on everyone's needs. And he will do everything possible to make sure everyone is successful that is in his circle.
And he's a phenomenal trainer.
Yeah, that's what makes him different. And I cherish our friendship and our partnership on lethal sales and everything else that we do.
Right on, Larry. Right on. That was great.
Charity, you have a question?
Yeah.
Well, we should probably wrap up soon, but if if there's anything you wanted to mention that we didn't ask you or we didn't get to cover, now would be a good time to mention it.
Sure. Well, the very first thing is all I say to everyone out there is keep your eyes open. Really keep your eyes open. Your eyes are going to give you 50% of your benefits during the day. You're going to see it, and it's how you react to those visions that you see and how you engage in those visions, because visions are always there. Sound isn't. So what observations you're seeing, what observations you're seeing as a car comes through the service drive, what observations are you seeing when a person walks into your showroom, what observations are you seeing when you're looking at team members and how they interact, what are you seeing out there? That is going to be your most profound change moving forward. If you take those observations and act on them properly and with consideration to who you're talking to and how you're talking to them, you will change the dynamics of people's lives. And that's
Thank you.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah, that was awesome. Listen, Peter Smith, thank you. I have to say, Larry, I agree. As I've gotten to know you, the impact that you've had on Peter is truly amazing. And Cherry and Patrick, for helping all this come together and making this happen. How do people get a hold of Peter Smith?
Well, they can get a hold of me through lionpartnership.com, peter@lionpartnership.com, or they can call me directly on my cell. I answer it like I'm a student of Larry. My phone's on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it's 905-466-2786. And I work with everybody. I don't work just with dealers. I work with vendors. I work with OEMs. I work with everybody out there that is involved in our great business.
Yeah.
So
and if
again,
you got
905-466-2786.
Say it one more time.
905-466-2786.
So I'm going to tell you, when this comes out, gobble it up. There's going to be shorts. Like him, love him, connect with him, share it with your people. There's amazing stuff in here. And all the people that know Peter, I learned some stuff about him today that I didn't know. And I'm sure it's going to be the same for you. If you're a vendor out there and you think you really got something and it's not working for you, you don't quite understand why you're not making your mark, I bet you could reach out to Peter and run it by him, and he's going to tell you the truth. I'm just going to tell you that he's going to tell you.
Absolutely. I shoot from. I'm an honorary Texan. I shoot from the hip.
So. Right. Well, listen. Thank you so much. This concludes another extremely episode of WTF, and that's What the FixedOPS. To all of you out there, we love you, and we'll see you next time real soon. Thanks.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you. I appreciate it.